Thanks so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, rising tensions between Israel and Hezbollah. Israel's officials warning the ceasefire is coming apart, and unless some changes, another round of fighting is almost inevitable. And we're going to bring you more on Israel's move to counter the propaganda against it and win the global information war. Here at home, a growing number of people are reading the Bible, but at the same time, belief in what the Bible teaches is falling. We're going to have a look at what's being done to help develop spiritual commitment. And our Studio 5 conversation with recording artist, songwriter, and pastor Bryan Andrew Wilson, who stepped away from music briefly. We're going to hear how he's resumed his musical journey. All those stories and more right now on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We're going to begin this Wednesday, the 3rd of December in Israel, which is warning today the ceasefire with Hezbollah may be falling apart as tensions on the northern border rise quickly. It comes as Israel is stepping up its efforts to win the information war, especially with young people. CBN's Paul Petit brings us this story. He's reporting now from Jerusalem.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with President Donald Trump's envoy for Lebanon affairs as border tensions continue to escalate in northern Israel. Israeli officials say last year's ceasefire with Hezbollah is unraveling, and without significant changes, another round of fighting in the north is almost inevitable. One Israeli official says they've warned Lebanon's government that it's failing to disarm Hezbollah as required, adding that the terror group has boosted its ranks and restocked rockets smuggled through Syria. While visiting wounded troops in a hospital near Tel Aviv, Netanyahu repeated his goal to expand a demilitarized buffer zone along the Israel-Syria border. The prime minister says he's open to a Syria deal, but will not allow any repeat of October 7.
We are determined to protect our communities on our borders, including the northern border, and to prevent the establishment of terrorists and hostile actions against us, to protect our Druze allies, and to ensure the state of Israel is safe from a ground attack and other attacks from the areas adjacent to the border.
Last week's targeted counter-terror raid in southern Syria left 6 IDF soldiers wounded. Meanwhile, small remains of a body delivered from the Gaza Strip is not that of any remaining hostages. The bodies of 2 hostages yet to be delivered as part of the ceasefire deal with Hamas include an Israeli and Thai captive. In the public relations war, Israel is overhauling its international communications, sparked by a warning in this letter from Charlie Kirk to Benjamin Netanyahu, sent days before Kirk's assassination. Kirk urged Netanyahu to confront what he called a losing information war among young Americans. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee echoed those concerns in an interview with CBN News in September.
I'll be the first to say I think Israel's got to do a better job of their own messaging.
If you were the PR consultant for them, what would you tell them?
I tell them to get a bunch of social media influencers, because the real problem is with Generation Z.
In his letter, Kirk advised targeting Christian evangelicals to help spread accurate information in support of Israel.
I think that Christian evangelicals, they play a pivotal role in that. And if we have Christian evangelicals watching this, so I have to say thank you from us Israelis. We really cherish that. I think that you were called for such a time as this to use your voice and to not be silent.
The Israeli government now is taking a more centralized messaging strategy, modeled by the White House and Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Shosh Bedrosian, the Prime Minister's spokesperson for foreign media, stepped into her role just days after Kirk's letter. She now issues daily briefings as Israel tries to regain control of its global narrative. Paul Petit, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell is joining us now from Jerusalem to continue our coverage. Chris, we're going to talk more about Israel's information war in a moment. But first, is Israel preparing for another round of fighting with Hezbollah?
It really does seem that way ever since November 2024. Actually, Israel has been hitting Hezbollah almost on a daily basis because Hezbollah has been violating that ceasefire agreement. And right now it seems to be coming to a head, despite all the diplomatic efforts by U.S. envoys and by any discussion between Israel and Lebanon. There's been very little about that, but still it seems like it's coming to a head, and Israel may be preparing for another ground offensive inside southern Lebanon, especially to make sure that Hezbollah does not rearm and regroup and get any sort of the strength it had before October 7th. $1 billion apparently from Iran has been funneled into Hezbollah to make sure that they can try to rearm and regroup. But right now, it appears that Israel is preparing for a possible ground incursion. They already have 5 strategic locations inside Lebanon to make sure that Hezbollah does not rearm, but that's not probably enough right now. So it does look, Ephraim, like there will be some sort of a round of fighting with Hezbollah, since the Lebanese army is either unwilling or unable to go ahead and disarm Hezbollah.
Chris, have people in northern Israel returned home after the Hezbollah attacks over the last couple of years? And was their reaction? What is their reaction to all of this?
Well, they have returned, and I've heard estimates of about 75% of the people that had to leave northern Israel after October 8th. And October 8th was one day after October 7th, obviously. That's when Hezbollah joined the war. They fired thousands of rockets into northern Israel. About 60,000 Israelis had to leave northern Israel. As I said, about 75% have had to return. I would think they don't expect the kind of strength that Hezbollah had before October 8th would be anything near they have, but still they would have to deal with possible rocket attacks, mortar attacks along the border and as far south as maybe near the Galilee, or the Sea of Galilee. So I think that's something that they would have to contend with. But I doubt there would be sort of the evacuation there was after October 8th, when literally about 60,000 Israelis were literally refugees in their own country after Hezbollah was firing all those rockets. But they once again may have to deal with Hezbollah, a rearmed Hezbollah, and posing some danger there on the northern border.
Chris, how is the situation with Syria related to Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon?
Well, Syria at one time had been the conduit between Iran and Hezbollah, Iran being the main sponsor of Hezbollah and funneling weapons and finances toward their terror group. But then last year this month, Ephraim, and we were just talking about it with a friend of mine from Lebanon who was visiting. Hard to believe how much that has changed and what that did in terms of Iran and Hezbollah. It really cut off to a large extent this conduit, this ability for Iran to fight and rearm Hezbollah. Now with the new regime by al-Shara, that much of that has been cut off. But that also presents another threat to Israel, and especially on its southern border. And that's why they're holding the strategic heights of Mount Hermon to make sure that there is no new major threat to Israel on its border with Syria.
Chris, we touched on this yesterday, but let's expand on Israel's latest moves to improve its standing in the information war. What did Charlie Kirk say in his letter about this subject?
Well, he actually said it was like a 5-alarm fire to Benjamin Netanyahu, that it may have been winning on the battlefield, but it was losing on the information battlefield, and that it was just one of the things that would undermine Israel's ability to defend itself. He called the information war as serious as a military battlefield. What he actually proposed was a rapid response team that he said minutes matter, that a longer a lie remains, that the harder it would be to correct. And he said there are tens of millions of Christians who were there to help to amplify the truth and help Israel come against these false narratives.
Will Israel be countering false stories in the global media like genocide in Gaza?
I think that's exactly what they're going to do, and I think you'll see a dramatic increase trying to fight against those charges of genocide that were false, but they were strategically dangerous. Actually, some people would call them an existential threat. And then also, Charlie Kirk said you've got to have more evidence to refute Hamas's charges, document what Hamas is doing. And I think Israel, you're going to see a greater partnership with Christians and pastors. I think we mentioned this yesterday, Ephraim. There's 1,000 pastors and influencers today in Israel. They're actually right now down south going to the Nova Music Festival to see for themselves what happened October 7th and how they can communicate that to their churches and platforms.
All right, our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thank you so much for your insights. As always, we look forward to hearing from you in the days ahead this week. Coming up here at home, a growing number of people are reading the Bible. At the same time, the number of people who believe what it's teaching is dropping. We're going to bring you that story when we come back. You're watching CBN NewsWatch.
Introducing a brand new way to start your morning. Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Discover how God is moving around the world and here at home. Plus, get exclusive stories and daily scripture encouragement just for you. Stay informed. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
Recent studies tracking faith and Bible engagement show more younger Americans are reading the scriptures, but not as many people believe what the Bible teaches. CBN's Brody Carter explains how the church is using data to track the trends and at the same time help to develop spiritual commitment.
A closer look at these two trends shows the growing Bible engagement is driven by a surge of young adult men. As for belief in its teaching is connected to a broader national decline in religious identification.
This year, there's been this really encouraging, surprising increase amongst Bible readership. It's specific to young people, even more specific to young men.
The Barna Group, a Christian research organization, and Glue, a faith-based technology platform, teamed up on this study, which shows nearly half of millennials and Gen Z engage each week with Scripture. Still, Barna's Vice President of Research, Daniel Copeland, points out openness doesn't always mean faith.
The other thing that we wrote about in this article was how, although that readership has spiked, the affirmation of biblical teachings has not.
This drop mirrors a broader finding by Gallup, which shows a 17-point decline in Americans identifying as religious over the last 10 years. The lowest level ever recorded in the U.S. It also found a major shift in who's engaging.
Women tend to go to, for a long time, have tended to go to church more often or engage with scripture more often. And what we're seeing in some of the socio-political changes that have happened in the last 10 years, especially amongst young women, is a bit of a leaning away. My interpretation has been that men are starting to find belonging, starting to find relationship in these church settings at almost the same rate that women are starting to back away and saying, I just don't see myself here anymore. I don't see myself represented here anymore.
Researchers say this spiritual pattern runs parallel with a broader collapse in trust across other American institutions.
One of the biggest shifts that we've experienced is the decline of our institutions as brought on by mistrust, largely due to access of information. And so the church and Christian leaders are having to change light years in a few years of how we reach people, how do we talk to people, because things have shifted so fast.
This is where partners like Glue come in, working to translate these national trends into local action.
We believe it's no longer optional that a church is using technology in ministry context, and we want to be there to help faith leaders figure this out together and do it well and do it redemptively.
Glue's Brad Hill is part of the rapidly growing church tech industry. His company provides tools to help churches see how they compare to national trends.
We'll celebrate the wins where we get them, right? When we can see healthy patterns and encouraging trends. But I think it also does for church leaders and faith leaders, it does outline there's still a great need to connect these things together.
The ultimate goal for faith, to connect this resurgence of curiosity with lasting faith.
The aspiration of this work is always to give church leaders the clearest perspective of what's going on out there so I can make strategic decisions about what I'm going to do here at my church, in my local community. Because at the end of the day, local communities, the local church is where relationship happens. It's where transformation happens.
Brody Carter, CBN News.
Still ahead, our Studio 5 conversation with recording artist, songwriter, and pastor Bryan Andrew Wilson, whose musical journey began some 30 years ago. He's talking to us about what he's doing right now. It's all coming up right after this. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. Bryan Andrew Wilson is a recording artist and songwriter. He came to be known as a child, just singing his song, His Eyes Are on the Sparrow, with the Mississippi Mass Children's Choir. That happened in the 90s. Today, after a brief hiatus, he continues that music journey, and he's also a pastor now. Take a look. What moment are we sitting in now in Bryan Andrew Wilson's life?
The moment now, I am in a point, I feel like I'm in a renaissance period. You know, things are being rebirthed in my life all the way around. The music ministry is really being rebirthed. I feel as though I found my sound, you know, and as a singer, I think that's something that every artist desires to do. You know, we always want to evolve. But I think there comes to a moment where you have to say, well, this is who I found my identity. And I'm just at that place of appreciating who God has made Bryan Andrew Wilson, you know, through all the flaws, through all the imperfections, through all the storms, or whatever the case may be. I'm owning my manhood. I'm owning the person that God has made me to be.
Filled with pain and strife, but I kept on, kept on, kept on.
So the song that we're hearing from you now, I Kept On, what gave birth to that?
Honestly, my manager, Bill Carpenter, sent me a track, and I heard the track, and I was just trying to hear the melody, hear something to go with it. So I was sitting in my car one day, just sitting in the car outside of the house, and I was listening to it. The melody just came, I kept on. It was that or either you know, but whatever it was, I wanted a song to be directed saying how I made over something. That's where I was at that time in life.
Now I realize I was never alone.
My mother had just recently passed, and so my best friend had passed, my mentor had passed, all within a 3-year period. And so there were so many things that I was facing emotionally, mentally, spiritually, that seemingly unplugged me. But in spite of it, I kept going on. And so I sent my manager two versions, and he's like, something about that kept on. You know, I was like, well, let me go back and hear it again. So I listened, I was like, bro, you're right. This, hey, you know, is my testimony, and it speaks. You know, I kept on, and that's really what happened. I kept on, because many times I didn't want to.
You gotta keep on.
What would you say to someone going through grief? We're now approaching a season of the year where I think grief is even harder than any other time, because we go through these pivotal holidays where we're used to people being there.
Absolutely.
And now they're not.
I would definitely tell them, see a therapist. You know, I believe in the power of prayer, but I do believe that God graces us in different perspectives and in different measures. You know, so I would suggest that, and to let them know that you find safety in community.
I'm turning away from the past, from the hurt, from the shame, and the things that had me bound.
Tell me about the ministry. God called you to start a church?
Yes. It's Freedom of Atlanta. And it started off with just a couple of people, and all of a sudden people were coming and hearing about it. And some days I would look out and be like, why are these people here? You know?
Is this the life you dream for yourself?
This is absolutely not the life I dream. I don't believe that I would do anything differently. You know, I'm to that place to understand that really Romans 8:28 is in effect in my life. You know, that all things work together for the good. And that where I am where I'm supposed to be. You know, through every obstacle, every situation, I am where I'm supposed to be.
Said I'm turning away.
For more on Bryan's music and ministry, visit his website at bryanwilson.com. And join us this evening for an all-new edition of Studio 5. We're going to look at the series Miracle, featuring stories of people experiencing miraculous healings. And we're going to talk to Nathan Davis Jr., the actor, singer, and songwriter, is sharing stories of his encounter with God and some deep personal loss. You can see it on Studio 5 on the CBN News channel at 8 Eastern. You can also watch it on the CBN News app. It's available on YouTube as well. And our Studio 5 has a podcast. It's called Conversations from Studio 5. It is your weekly destination for uplifting interviews with a strong focus on faith. This week, we're taking a more in-depth look with the recording artist, Pastor Bryan Andrew Wilson. He expands more on his music, his career, and his ministry journey. You can listen to the episode on your favorite podcast platform. We'll be right back with an encouraging word for your Wednesday. Please stay with us.
Something has been happening on campuses across the nation.
I'll never forget what I saw.
We did not plan this at all. What in the world is happening?
Thousands of students around this body of water.
I don't know, I'm just in awe of God.
Gen Z has been written off. They're not the generation that's, following the standards.
Honestly, I would just post and post and post and make sure that it looked like everything was okay when deep down it wasn't.
People hate on college students, Gen Z, so much, saying there's no hope for Gen Z.
I think they've had everything the world has to offer, and they're done with it.
You all are a part of a generation that God is sparking revival, and it is spreading.
There's so many people that don't know their love, that don't know that they can live free of anxiety, free of depression.
It's just getting started.
Available now. Yours for a gift of any dollar amount.
Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. Time now for your Wednesday word, and today's word is this. One of our greatest mistakes is we make man too big and we make God too small. He is a great big God, and he is concerned about you and every burden you carry. Cast your cares on him and seat him in his rightful place. He belongs on the throne of your heart, and no man is greater or bigger than him. With that word, make this a wonderful Wednesday. That's going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can always find more of our programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time, as well as online. That address is cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. We'll see you tomorrow.